Hi, this is Gwen Reyes with Dallas International Film Festival. I'm sitting here with Dirty Energy director Brian Hopkins. Thank you so much for chatting with me this morning.
You got it.
So the film was screened last night, and it had a good screening.
Yeah, everything was really good. I mean, we had a good audience, great questions. Got thrown actually some pretty good questions, and so it was good. I was really happy with it.
So let's talk a little about Dirty Energy. The fact of the matter is that we're in Texas, and the Gulf spill was a huge thing that affected us all last 2 summers ago. What was how did you get involved with doing that?
Well, essentially, me creating this film was just sort of a reaction to feeling frustrated and feeling a bit, defenseless watching the TV, and I was just, watching the oil spill. The oil just kept coming out, and people were crying, and it was a really powerful thing. And eventually, I just said, I got to do something, and so what I did is I had $200 in the bank, and I had some groceries that I bought with food stamps, and I drove down there and I posted on Facebook and said, if you ever want to see me again, you better send me some money. And so I was down there for 3.5 weeks, living on couches and really getting to know the locals. And then from that, I wanted to create a film that communicated their voice and their perspective, and not necessarily put that in a bigger context, just keep it pure.
And I think that's what's so fascinating is that when all of that was going on and it was in the news, and people who aren't from Texas or people who weren't directly affected by it, either be Louisiana or Mississippi, they didn't quite understand the small business aspect, the actual human being aspect of it.
Right.
And seeing something like Dirty Energy that really focuses in on that is really incredible, because as somebody who, we were like, for example, our summers that summer, we couldn't eat shrimp. And then that put out all of these people that couldn't work because we couldn't eat their shrimp. Right. So you went for the angle of telling a human being story from that, but then what did you discover as you kind of went and made the film?
Well, they say the devil's in the details, and I would say that's so true. Everything, there's no story that's a personal story until it's personal to you. And I lived in Thailand for a while, and then when there was the tsunami hit there, I was like, I knew people in Thailand, so all of a sudden it became personal to me.
Right.
And so what I wanted to do in making this film is I wanted to make golf people personal, and I wanted people to be able to connect, to see that they're just like them, and that if they can simply care, then that would be the first step towards making a difference and making a change. Because if you care about something, then you tend to take care of it better.
Absolutely. And so you were saying last night that you had some crazy questions that went along with the film, because it is very controversial, and it is going to stir people, because you're either affected by it or you're just like, it was something on the news and I don't really care. So what are some of the craziest things that people have been talking about with it?
Well, I would say, one of the questions I got last night was about about some of the actions that we can do to try to fix that. And as much as I am a supporter of Obama, I do feel like there could have been much more bolder actions that could have been taken to renew people's faith. And so I was saying, well, we could have launched some alternative energy initiatives at the time that they were putting these rigs out of service, to create jobs and to create a new industry in there, because Louisiana is dependent on 3 main industries: tourism, fishing, and oil. And I said, well, we could have done wind turbine stuff like that. And one of the comments was, well, you're going to affect bird migration patterns and all this other stuff. And for me, I thought that was kind of crazy, because I'm thinking of, as a veteran, all these people who are going and fighting overseas, all the damage that we've done. We've really messed up the Gulf, and so therefore it's like, we have to make some tough decisions, and every decision is going to have its costs and its consequences. And not to say that a wind farm is the best. I'm not a researcher. I don't have all the plans and schematics to be able to say yes, do this. But we have to do something. We have to do it now. And I think people are pathetic in their excuses on that, because it's just, we need to do something.
Well, and I think that it has a huge thing about, it's something different. Like oil is something that we understand, because even if you have been alive for many, many decades, it's something that we all understand. Wind farm is something that's new and exciting, and people are like, "Whoa, it's fancy," and we don't know what it's about. And I think you bring up a great point, because that was one of my things after the entire thing happened. I was like, we shouldn't be relying on this oil, and then you have this issue where it's just buckets, and I mean, it's gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons, hundreds, thousands of gallons of oil in the water, and there's nothing that we can do about it. I mean, it's going to be there forever. And it's great seeing something like Dirty Energy talking about that, because it happened 2 years ago and it's not in the news anymore.
Well, yeah, and the best number that I've been able to come up with talking to experts in the region is from the Exxon Valdez oil spill. It's going to take about 5 years for us to know the true effects. So in other words, these legal settlements that are being made, they're trying to settle them within the first year, because they know that the worst has yet to come. We haven't truly understood the total impacts of this. So, right now they're catching an enormous amount of shrimp. But is the and that's because some of the natural predators are believed to have been killed off. Certain
Right.
trout aren't there, and so what's going to happen next? Is it going to collapse like the herring collapsed in Alaska? So there's a lot of issues and concerns, and I think that it's just people need to realize that it isn't just the anniversary. I mean, the 20th anniversary, or the 2-year anniversary, is on the 20th, so it's Friday, and and people are like, oh, it's the anniversary. Let's have a tsunami anniversary. Let's have
Right.
an earthquake anniversary. Let's have every disaster has its anniversary. And I think it just makes it into like a novelty.
It
And,
does.
and
It
it's really
does.
unfortunate, because I just think that people need to be engaged every single day. I mean, at the same time the oil spill went on there, we had an oil spill in Michigan.
Right.
This tar sands.
Yes, I remember that.
And then, it was one of the national parks had an oil spill there, but they're all out of sight, out of mind. And the fact is oil is dirty to extract, it's dirty to process, and it's dirty to use. Okay, and there's other alternatives, but the reality is how do you tax it? Or how do you tax the sun? How do wind power? How do you tax the wind? So I think that there's people who don't want to move, because there's a lot of money to be made in oil, because it's limited, and limited creates value. So if we move people into an area where it's sustainable and it's just naturally getting it, then the incentive isn't there, and so we need to figure something out.
And it's crazy to me, because as something like as oil is, people keep thinking, oh, it's going to be there forever. And even I remember like 10 years ago, people were like, oh, we don't have to worry about this for another 100 years. And now, just 10 years later, it's like, oh, we need to start worrying about this for 50 years from now. It's going to be an issue, and we need to find alternative resources that make sense and that people can understand and that work and aren't destroying habitats, human beings, jobs. Like, these are all really important things, without going in and just kind of being like, well, we're not going to do wind farming, or we're not going to do blah, blah, blah. We're just going to let these things happen and just kind of brush it under the table a little bit. So if people are interested, Brian, in knowing more about Dirty Energy, where should they go to find out more information?
Well, I definitely recommend liking us on Facebook. Every time I get updates and there's new screenings and showings, I put all that information up there. There's also dirtyenergymovie.com as well, and then Flood Films,
Awesome.
the website.
Great. And it's screening again tonight, correct?
Yep, screening tonight, so please come out.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, so much. Dirty Energy sounds amazing, and it's the kind of movie that needs to be seen, and I'm excited that it's in the environmental category this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.